Hello, I'm Peter Bradshaw of The Guardian, and welcome back to this channel, tethering the smartphone of your consciousness to the hotspot of critical truth. And let me remind you to hit the subscribe button hard and leave a comment. A woman's work is never done in Chantal Akerman's icily deadpan Degree Zero movie from 1975, now on re-release for its 50th anniversary. Jeanne DIELMAN, 23 Quai du Commerce, 1080 Bruxelles. Over 3 hours and 20 minutes, and from a sequence of fixed camera positions, it blankly shows the ordinary life of Jeanne DIELMAN, a 40-something widowed single mother living with her teenage son Sylvain in a modest one-bedroom apartment in central Brussels. He sleeps in a fold-out sofa bed in the front room. The place is heavily furnished in a style that clearly dates from before the war. The glass-fronted dresser weirdly reflecting the flashing blue lights from the store across the street, a touch which the audience will come to notice in time, and which may be a premonition of the police's future arrival. The hours and the days go by, each like the last. Jeanne cooks, washes up, cleans, goes shopping, shines Sylvain's shoes. Sometimes she looks after a neighbour's baby in a carry-cot. She mends Sylvain's jacket, fatefully leaving her dressmaking scissors in the bedroom. And in the afternoons, while he is out at school, Jeanne supplements the widow's pension that we see her collecting from the post office by receiving gentlemen visitors who are discreetly attended to on a towel placed primly over the counterpane on what was once Jeanne's marital bed. I'd rather watch her cooking, incidentally, than any number of insufferably life-affirming foodie films. But her life and state of mind are to come to pieces, gradually and then suddenly, for reasons which we, the audience, have to supply. DIELMAN is played by Delphine Seyrig, her son by Jeanne Decourt, and her clients by filmmaker Henri Storck, critic and director Jacques Doniol-Valcroze, and actor Yves Bical. This is also the 10th anniversary of something very grim. Chantal Akerman heartbreakingly took her own life in 2015 and never lived to see her work win the all-time best film poll from the UK's Sight and Sound magazine in 2022. Maybe it's just as well. It triggered a certain amount of punching up satire in certain quarters about out-of-touch elitist cinephilia on account of this greatest ever prize that Akerman neither expected nor sought and might well have embarrassed and horrified her. Maybe it's only by forgetting about this gold medal that we can see the film clearly. Jeanne DIELMAN's secret life is not a secret. The truth is made quite clear at the very beginning of the film. The sad-faced, well-dressed man politely handing over the money as he leaves. And yet the film follows this with a real-time exposition of her day-to-day life of such sustained banality that we almost forget what we've just seen. It numbs us, and we lose our sense of what was just happening, just as Jeanne has herself forgotten about it over time. It is a surrealist effect. Bought sex in the afternoon is not dramatised or fetishised, as it is in, say, Louis Buñuel's Belle de Jour, and it doesn't give us any insight into her mind. When we see Jeanne in the kitchen wearing a dull housecoat, with that permed hairdo immaculately in place, kneading meat for a dish at almost unfathomable length, she's in a housewifely trance. There's certainly nothing very sensual about it. Perhaps she is the mound of beef in the hands of her customers. We never see her face in close-up, although it does come a little nearer to the camera in the final act, and we only glimpse her smiling briefly and in profile when she makes polite conversation with shop assistants. What explicit guide there is to her life comes in a letter from her sister Fernande, who lives in Canada, which Jeanne reads aloud, and which informs us, the audience, Jeanne has been a widow these 6 years. The title, as well as naturally representing Jeanne's placid bourgeois existence, is in fact Jeanne's postal address, the words which Fernande will have written on the envelope. In a clothes shop, Jeanne will also recount the story of when Fernande came to stay, when Sylvain was just 6 years old, and mother, father and son slept in the same bed. The other expository set pieces come when Sylvain, just before sleep and bedtime, asks his mother about her sex life and confesses that a friend once told him that sex was so painful for the woman that he would, as a child, fake bad dreams at night to rescue his mother from this terrible ordeal. Jeanne is coolly disapproving of this, but tells him that his father's ugliness was of no account. Sleeping with him was just a detail, she says. Sleeping with these men is just a detail in the film as well. But it is to become more than a detail. Something happens in the bedroom. Jeanne becomes subtly discomposed, forgetful, and in almost infinitesimal but escalating disarray. Was there a moment of violence? Has Sylvain's puberty and his newly impertinent and hurtful comments on sex suddenly opening Jeanne's eyes to the truth? Or something else? Something suggested by the director herself, that Jeanne is shocked by feeling pleasure, perhaps for the very first time in her life, and by the feelings of disloyalty to her late husband, disloyalty to her whole sense of self, and loss of control. This is not the climactic truth about Jeanne. It is not that her sex work is the secret beneath her respectable image. Perhaps it is more that her respectable image is the secret beneath her sex work. And when did Jeanne begin on this sideline in the first place? Presumably after her husband died, but not necessarily. It is not entirely out of the question that she began before her widowhood. The vision that she gives us of herself and her sister just after the war shows us how transactional sex could be. Her sister went with a GI and married him. As attractive young women, they had that sexual capital and nothing else in the chaos of war. The wartime memories are very real. This film is much closer to the end of the war than it is to our present day. The framed photograph of Jeanne's parents on the bedside table, incidentally, is another glacially sad, antique touch. From our 21st century perspective, we can see how the film has influenced, say, Jamie Rosales' The Hours of the Day from 2003, or Michael Haneke's Hidden from 2005, although perhaps there aren't many filmmakers who can or wish to imitate Ackerman. The modern conversation around ADSD and ADHD perhaps sheds a new diagnostic light on Jeanne's behaviour and indeed the film's own procedure. The silence of Jeanne Dielman is the film's weather and its atmosphere. It is a silence of terrible loneliness and a silence in which a storm is gathering. And that's it. Please give this vlog a like and a share on your socials. Please hit the subscribe button with all your might. And please, can I just say something now about my new book? A collection of short fiction that I may conceivably have mentioned before, called The Body in the Mobile Library and Other Stories. Please don't be one of those people that you sometimes hear about, the people who don't buy my book, the people who announce that they have, quote, other leisure and spending priorities. Honestly, what sort of talk is that? So please, get out your debit card or the relevant Apple Pay software on your smartphone, get onto Amazon, and do the right thing. You know you want to.